Hello folks, hello. Let's get started. Both headed back. Check through the rest of the building. Finding no more Jade and hiding. We went to the front of the building at the stairs to find Deza coming down it, all triumphant, with two fellow commandos and one militia man in tow, one guerrilla in tow. Have some luck. Booth asked Deza. Upstairs is cleared. Deza replied. Got the drop on him. We took out... Let's see, how many did you take out? 1, 2... Took out 4. 5. 5. There's another. The others were taken out by you. Somebody else. Found a guy dead. Some of the room. One room. Must have gotten sniped. So sad for you. What a burden it is. Must be for you to have to take a man's life. So many lives. Oh dear. I wish you wouldn't mock me. How I feel about this. About all this. There's a muttered. Clearly not taking what both said as a joke. I mean, I'm not conscientious objector. Yep. Jade don't accept the existence of such things. Let's see what else is there. I'm not conscious of it. I've never shirked my... That's not how you spell shirked. There it is, shirked. Not sharked. I never shirked my responsibilities to... never run from a fight. I know that. Both said. Fine. There's no point in being a conscientious objector. Spelled that wrong again. Amazing how some foods can affect me, like put me in a total brain fog like I am right now. Yeah, apparently a little piece of chicken and some gravy, and that just... It's like a sleeping pill, like I'm chugging down the drug that helps you sleep, serotonin or something, like whoop, 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 whoop. Like a Pepsi bottle sized drink of that. I'm not sure how much that stuff actually is in your brain. I mean, maybe it's just like a tablespoon for most people. If it's a tablespoon for most people, and for me it must be like a ladle or something, like all over the brain. I don't know what color it is. Blue? I picture a sleep chemical being blue. Associate blue with sleep. All my bedding is blue. I don't think I could fall asleep if I had yellow or golden or white bedding. That would look weird. Feel weird, you know. When the Jade, don't acknowledge such a thing. Yeah, I guess. Deza agreed, partially. There were the bad guys in the last war were pretty ruthless too. Definitely a threat to all of humanity. There were still people, plenty of people, who refused to fight. Wonder how the peaceful people of Tibet are doing against the Jade. It said, must be making it an easy occupation for them. Guess I didn't know anything about Tibet except that it existed. Didn't communist China invade Tibet and kill 1 million of them? Blow up all these temples and stuff? Sounds like a Holocaust, but most people don't know about it. There's been a lot of terrible disasters through history that people don't know about. Most people know about the Holocaust, I assume. Most people probably never read a book about it. I've never technically read a book about the Holocaust. I did read a book about Nazis, Himmler, the Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, and probably a few dozen other books. Most of them focused on the combat stuff because, massacres and atrocities, they're not fun to talk about and they're not fun to write. I'd much rather write about a shootout where both sides are pew, 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 you know what I mean? Than a massacre where people are just running around screaming while soldiers, in quotation marks, shoot at them with machine guns. That's just horrid. That miniseries I saw, War and Remembrance, most of the shooting that occurred in that miniseries I remember, were massacres of people. Not I think there was only 1 or 2 combat scenes, and it involved the Pacific Theater, even though the movie was mostly about Europe and Hitler. I mean, they didn't even show anything about the surrender of Japan, besides a little newspaper at the end. It was mostly about Europeans. There were no viewpoint characters for the Japanese. There were a lot of times where it was on the Germans. I'm kind of rambling here, but yeah, War and Remembrance is a good miniseries. You should watch it if you want to see how to do a war story, switching from many different points of view and whatnot. See, except that it existed. For all Deza do, the Jade took every Tibetan person and ground them up into dog kibble. What's the name of that? That's the name of that guy, or talk show host, who gets pimped by YouTube constantly. Jimmy Kimmel, I think. Yeah, I remember when he was on the Man Show with that other guy, Adam Carolla, and that was a pretty entertaining show. Naturally, you couldn't have a show like that today because, people on Twitter would get angry, and God help you if you get people on Twitter angry about anything, even though they're people with severe anger management issues don't get as upset as people on Twitter over little tiny insignificant things. Let me see, where's that other thing I need to check? Rogue. Part 3. Check. Deleted. Good die young. Yes, the good do die young, folks. That's clear. Though I should say that people's definition of what young is has changed drastically. I mean, there was a time when people being 50 be considered very old, dying at that age. But nowadays, 50 is considered young. That's a young age. That's pretty impressive. Maybe in another century, living to 100 and dying will be considered too early. Human beings will be like elves in Lord of the Rings. And they'll be able to look any way they want, you know? Like, I mean, if you want to get pointed elf ears, go ahead, you know? You want to become a man and get pregnant as a man, probably won't be an issue. Probably just be as natural as women having birth. I'm talking about the future, naturally. Probably like hundreds of years from now. I don't think they'll be able to get a man pregnant in this century. Though maybe they'll have a lot of good developments. I think we're in a good spot, folks, technologically speaking. Things, I mean, they weren't going to cure cancer in the time of the Roman Empire, were they? Let's see. Every Tibetan person in Grandma going to kill them. Maybe there was a thriving Tibetan resistance. All those monks running around, slicing up the jade with spears and whatever you called they had instead of swords. And swords. If they had swords in Tibet. Presumably. I'm sure if I looked up Google now and says, what's a Tibetan sword? I'd probably see a picture of some crazy looking scimitar looking sword, I imagine. I don't know why I would imagine it would be scimitar. Like, the Tibetans aren't Middle Eastern or Muslim. Though, I think they live near a large Muslim Chinese minority. I'm not sure. I think they're the largest religion in Tibet, besides Buddhism and Christianity. So, either number 3 or number 2, but I'm not sure it's certain. Yeah, Tibetan monks fighting. Like in Tomb Raider 2. That was that level in that monastery. That was my favorite thing. Slicing up jade with spears in here. The old debate about... There's a thought of the old debate. The dominance of spirit versus technology. The Jade were like the Japanese in the last war, who believed that their fighting spirit could overcome any technological or industrial advantage. Yeah, I mean, they really did believe that, folks. It's quite a thing, isn't it? I mean, well, what am I saying? Well, you know, it actually did work for a time. The Japanese fighting spirit over the Allies, who were pretty shocked that the Japanese were so successful against them. I mean, the Japanese couldn't beat the China, which was a backwards and drug-addled, civil war-ridden country. How could they beat the Allies, the superpowers of the time? Well, they did, at least initially. And then the tide turned as, well, you know, history. Let's see. They did beat the Allies hard in the early years, but then the tide turned. I suppose it wouldn't be the Jade weren't like the Japanese exactly, for the Jade had technological, industrial strength on top of their intense spiritual strength. They were like the Japanese, like the Japs in that regard. Deza's not a politically correct boy. He won't say Japanese every time. I mean, this is 1948. No one's having good feelings towards the Japanese at this point in time. Even the Japanese themselves, maybe. Let's see. I'm talking in a historic context, and no reason it wouldn't be any different in this fiction. They were like the Japanese in that regard. They were very spiritual. As I remember a bunch of times he ran across dying jade, and they were making noise, and they were praying for themselves, the souls of their comrades, then themselves before expiring. It was rather haunting. As I saw that a lot of guerrillas had come into the building to take up defensive positions. They were fighting. They were exchanging shots with jade out there among the crates. With the building secured, Deza and his comrades would have to go back out there into the dock area. Didn't have much appeal. The building seemed much more safe. Going out into the dock, going out to the outside, from Deza's point of view, was akin to leaving a safe island in the ocean, taking to the shark-infested waters to try and make it back to civilization. Alright, that analogy spiraled out of control. Going on the outside from desert was akin to leaving a safe island in the ocean and taking to the shark-infested waters. Of course, to complete the mission, Deza had to go back out there. We still had a lot of docked ships to sink. Deza and Booth got out, headed outside. That's in time to, just as some big jade medium tank, Byzant 1 type, showed up. It had a big main gun and, oh boy, folks, hull mounted MGs and a top mounted MG about the top hatch. How come you don't kill any tanks in Wolfenstein? I guess because they maybe set after a Nazi after a Nazi have conquered the world and it's in occupied territory. I guess they don't need to have tanks patrolling the streets of Berlin or Poland. Those places had been pacified long ago. I'm talking about the New World Order, folks. That was a game that came out a few years ago. The Wolfensteins before that, I think most of them implied that they all implied that the Allies won World War II. Bit of a retcon, I suppose. Makes all that Nazi killing I did in my childhood not worth nothing. In the original Wolfenstein 3D. I think I'd like to novelize that, but only if I got to have the Allies win the war. I don't want any of this damn man the high castle bullshit. Stealing away the Soviets' time to shine as the bad guys of the world with the real Cold War, you know what I mean? Honestly, it's strange how that Man in the High Castle show can be boring sometimes. How can you have a boring show about Nazis and the crazy Japanese Empire ruling the world? I mean, it seems impossible. The show could use a little more action in my view. That was my criticism of that other show I watched. Luke Cage. I watched only the first season. I felt that that show could have used. I always say that show could have used one or two more random cool action scenes. Just that much, and it would have been a perfect balance of action and drama, I think. It's really hard to balance these things, folks, as you can see by this. The tank had a fearsome dark green and gray camo for dark gray and fearsome spotted urban camo paint job that seemed to extend to the armored suit, who was situated on the top-mounted MG, spraying back and forth. Deza and Booth returned fire as they charged for some nearby cover, a big stack of crates. The crates did an admirable job blocking gunfire from the tank, with the tank's bullets only ripping through a few of the smaller crates. Remember, folks, when you see in movies where a thin wooden table stops the bullet, that's bullshit. Bullets will go through anything, pretty much, including cars. Car bodies, you know. In movies, those are depicted as, like, indestructible. Like, they can just take bullets endlessly, but that's not the case in real life. Even a weak 9mm bullet will go through walls and stuff. That's why you have all these things, like when gangs shoot out and they accidentally hit and kill some little kid somewhere. That's the result. Like, if we lived in a world where bullets didn't go through walls or tables or windows, then yeah, that would be the case. Then all them little kids wouldn't get killed. You know. Sometimes it's a crying shame our world isn't more like in fiction. Let's see. The tank's 120mm main gun blasted a guerrilla position, vaporizing the men closest to the blast's epicenter and sending other men flying like they got hit by a train. The tank was hit by multiple RPG rockets then, but it took them without complaint or injury. Just some scuffing of that fearsome paint job. Paint job, one word. Damn it. Who decided that paint job should have one word? As I'm both opened up on the MG gunner on the top, who flinched a few times. As rounds caught him. He got one rifle bullet cleanly through the chest, but reacted like he just got hit by a squirt gun. Fucker must be on something. Both grunted, reloading in cover. Yeah. He's on the high of serving his emperor. Let's see. There's a... I guess the, yeah, they are very similar to the Japanese. Okay, folks. Did I mention I wanted these guys... I considered having these guys be a stand-in for Japan, but that wouldn't make sense. The Japanese were soundly defeated in the last war. These guys are just starting their war, basically. Okay, folks, have a nice day. Let's see, stop.